So while we're waiting, I would like to just go ahead and take a quick photo. Everybody can freeze and give a smile. So while we're waiting, I would like to just go ahead and take a Thank you very much.
All righty, and we are officially live on YouTube and we are recording. So I want to welcome everyone to our third event of Keeping Up with the Candidates, our series. I'm going to share my screen real quickly. And want to welcome everyone and want to turn it over to Brother President Harvey, our president of Beta Nu Lambda Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, to give us a welcome.
Good evening, brothers, and good evening, guests. I'm so excited about this evening and having the various judges with us. And so I want to thank Judge Little, Judge Hans, Judge Puritan, Judge Henderson, and Judge Best for all joining us this evening. I look forward to our conversation. I look forward to the work that we continue to do in the community and how we can learn more about the judicial system and how it impacts our community. And so thank you again for being here. And I'll turn it back over to you, Brother Poirier.
Thank you, Brother Harvey. And I'm going to turn it over to Brother Scott, who's going to give us a little bit of an overview of what we do with Keeping Up with Candidates.
Thank you, Brother Poirier. This is Brother Scott. So what we did with our political action committee was create this platform called Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Keeping Up with the Candidates. And what we really want to do here is as we vote in folks who are candidates at the time, but actually vote them into office, we want to have a platform to continue to hold them accountable for the promises that are made during the campaign trail. So this is our way of doing that and bring them to the forefront, bring them in front of the brotherhood and in front of the community, just to continue to have the conversation so that they understand what's going on in the community, so they understand what our needs are and what's being asked of them. This iteration is a kind of special edition that we're gonna, while we're having this conversation with the judges, so we can understand the laws and the jurisdictions a little bit more. But this all kind of falls in line with how we plan to support our community. So with that being said, thank you again, judges, for being here this evening.
Awesome. Thank you, Brother Scott. And so this evening, we have 5 incredible judges on here to share information, share their vision, share a lot of different information with us. And what tonight will look like in the hour that we have together is we'll start off with just an introduction of each judge, and then we'll transition over to a Q&A. We have got a number of questions that we'll pose to specific judges, but then we'll also leave it open. If there's a specific question that strikes you and you'd like to jump in and answer that as well, please feel free to do so. And then for brothers and other participants online, if you want to drop a question into the chat, we'll also be able to address those as well. So if we can, we'll just start off with some introductions from each of the judges. And Judge Best, I know you jumped on, and if you want to start, just a 1 to 2 minute introduction, what office you hold and what it does. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone. I'm Judge Kimberly Best, and I apologize for the delay. A lot's going on today. I will tell you that Judge Carla Archie sends her greetings, but our Mid-Atlantic Regional Conference is actually starting this evening, and she sends her greetings, and she's celebrating her 25th year. I am also a lifelong member and Silver Star of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I have served you as a district court judge since January 1st of 2009. Of course, district court is a court of general jurisdiction, and that jurisdiction, in that jurisdiction, I have served as a certified juvenile judge, family court judge, civil judge, criminal judge. I've served in every courtroom since I've had the pleasure of serving you, and I am now in my 13th year. And thank you and for having and sponsoring this panel. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge Best. And Judge Hans.
Good evening, everyone. I am Tayati Hands, and I'm also serving you as a district court judge here in Mecklenburg County. I serve on the district court. I think all of us here serve on the district court. Judge Archie, who's not with us, serves on the Superior Court. I'm originally from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I came to North Carolina many years ago to attend Winston-Salem State University and then the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha and currently a member of Omega Iota Omega, the graduate chapter. I'm also a mother, and these days, I guess you'd say I'm a 3rd grade teacher and a 6th grade teacher because my 9 and 11-year-old boys are virtually and remote learning from home. So I'm happy to be here and excited for the discussion.
Thank you, Judge Hans. And Judge Little?
Good evening to the amazing men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I want to thank the Beta Nu Lambda chapter for everything you do in this community and for this event. And my thanks to the community for tuning in. I am Judge C. Rene Little. I'm a daughter of this community. I'm from Charlotte. So it is a pleasure to actually serve in my home community. I'm also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, in addition to my big sisters in justice. Judge Hans and Judge Best. I just celebrated my 25th year yesterday, actually. So I'm excited to be able to still serve the community through Alpha Kappa Alpha. I actually am in Omega Tau Omega, which is in the Fort Mill area in the South Atlantic region, where I was actually initiated. I was initiated in the South Atlantic region many, many moons ago, as I said, 25 years ago, in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I am proud to be a first gener. As I say, I'm a first generation American of Liberian ancestry. My mother is from Liberia. My father, who's no longer with us, was raised in Liberia, but was a man of Nigerian and Sierra Leonean descent. So all my folk are from West Africa. My siblings and I were the first to be born in this country. And I think it helps me bring a perspective to the bench of being mindful of not only what people in our community are going through, but what the international community may face when they come to our courts. So I'm glad to be able to represent my motherland of Liberia, but my country of America on the bench. I am the proud wife of Paul Rick Little, who is a native of Cabarrus County, North Carolina. And I'm just excited to be here and to be a part of this amazing conversation. Thank you once again for having me.
Thank you, Judge Little. And Judge Keratin?
Good evening, brothers, and those who are joining us watching via YouTube. My name is Donald Puritan Jr. I am a district court judge, have been so pretty much since January 2011. When I first started, I have served in every courtroom, and my passion has been working with juveniles in that court system most of the time that I've been on the bench. I am from Charlotte and went to Winston-Salem State University and Howard University School of Law for that degree. I am also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and will be 20 game, as we like to say it, April 1st, next week. So our line birthday is coming up. So I'm always happy to be present with the brothers. The brothers of Beta Nu Lambda have always welcomed me, and it's been good to be a member of that this chapter as well. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. Hopefully it'll be fruitful for everyone involved.
Thank you. And Judge Henderson.
Good evening, everyone. I am Gary Henderson. I'm a native of Charlotte. Came out of West Charlotte High School. I then attended Appalachian State University, and I obtained my law degree from North Carolina Central University in Durham. I am a district court judge and been on the bench since I was elected in 2012. and I've come up for re-election twice, including last year, and I've been blessed to have been unopposed in both re-election periods. I have been serving in family court since I came to the bench in 2013. And so I'm in my ninth year serving the people of Charlotte in family court, which is one of our busiest courts, but it's an important court, as all of them are, as we're trying to help families and children. That is what my passion has been. And so I love serving the people of Mecklenburg County. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Henderson. And what we'll do now is I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll go back into grid mode, and we'll pop around a few questions. Again, questions will be to a specific judge, and myself and Brother Scott will be posing different questions, but feel free, if one hits your spirit, to jump in on that question. Please feel free to. So the first question is going to be for Judge Purton. What does your vision for an equitable justice system look like in Mecklenburg County? And what are the ways that we make this vision a reality?
Great and loaded question. So I think ultimately, so the court system is well, you have the physical edifice of the courthouse, and people come to this courthouse to settle disputes mostly. All right, so whether it's over fights or child custody, child support, something usually that's a challenge has led them to this courthouse. And in a perfect world, people would be able to resolve those issues on their own without having government involvement. So ideally, that's what I would love to see. Granted, that would mean I would be out of a job, but at least we know we're in a society that's amicable and able to handle very common things that turn to blow up into very big things. I'm primarily working right now in our first appearance court where we're handling bonds and setting, doing bond hearings and probable cause hearings, that kind of thing. And I hear all kinds of stories about people not being able to handle disputes, and then it blows up into somebody literally getting stabbed or shot. And it just, how do we address that? So ideally, what I think we need, and I know other judges would love to jump in on this, would be community engagement in a way that touches every single person, especially the least of us, so that they have the very basic things that they need, so that they don't feel like their issues would become the things that lead us in the court, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, again, child custody, education, employment, all these basic things that I think even I take for granted, so many people don't have, and it becomes issues that ultimately we have to deal with. So I'll stop there because I know I don't want to take up too much time, but that's definitely one thing I would love to see happen.
Thank you. Other judges want to jump in on that?
I want to say this, and I am I say the baby judge. I'm the newest person on the block. I was elected in November, began my term in January, but I'm really proud that I, along with Judge Purton, Judge Hands, Judge Best, Judge Henderson, in ways have really been having these conversations internally with our colleagues across different walks of life about equity. And when you ask about how can we make the justice system more equitable, the question I would ask all of us is, how do we make the world more equitable? Because the justice system it directly intersects with every other system, right? So we see people who are dealing with child support issues. We see people who are dealing with family law issues. We see people with substance abuse issues. And if you look at the data across all of those spaces, there is not a space where race has not played a factor. There's not a space where race has not played a factor. That is not a political statement. That is a fact. in this country's ground, in our community, of course. So I think the first thing to do when we talk about how do you make the justice system more equitable, I think we do is what we're trying to do now through the court system is we educate the community about implicit bias and the impact that biases based on race have had. Because it's those biases, right? Not just the systemic things we see, but some of the things that we have that plays a part in destiny and demography seeming tied. You know, when you hear criminal and you automatically think, let's say a person of color, that implicit bias has already played a part of something, right? And so I think the way we start to make the court system more equitable is what at least we've been trying to do, at least the judges in Mecklenburg County. We have conversations. We try to call people in and not just out and say, listen, we know race plays a factor. We long for the day where someone's consequence based on really what the evidence says and what they do, and not the things our biases may control. So if we educate ourselves and we say, okay, we know this happens, how can we start to mitigate? So the first way in my mind, and I welcome my colleagues, their perspectives as well, to make the justice system more equitable is for us to realize that the justice system is linked with every other system, has been impacted directly by racism and a bunch of isms, and realizing that education is the key. And then you can start developing the strategic plans, which we're doing in the court system, to say that we don't want to do further harm. We want to be mindful of our biases as we are seeing people that have already been touched by the system, because guess what? The court is the last stop, right? It's the last stop. They've already been touched by the system and some of those things. So that would be my answer. That's how we begin that journey of equity, is knowledge and being willing to partner and tackle it.
I'll add just a little bit. I think that Judge Puritan and Judge Little have both addressed it adequately, but I would just add that the education piece is tremendous. We have recently, this past year, started even educating our judges statewide, because see, the folks even in the system may not fully understand the history and the systemic racism that infects our justice system. And I know we all know that they have the saying, diagnosis requires treatment. And I would just offer up that also treatment requires a diagnosis. I think that there are still a number of folks who just don't realize the sickness that is systemic racism that infects us. And unless and until we are better about fully educating folks as to what we are dealing with, I think that is, like Judge Little already alluded to, that's one of the first steps to making sure that we can then move towards treatment, which is making some of the changes, some of which we have been able to make in Mecklenburg County, but not nearly what we need to do to actually ameliorate the racism that we know still exists in the justice system.
So I've got a quick question, a kind of a follow-on question for the judges. When we start talking about equity and being equitable in the justice system, and we know that that racism exists in the system itself, is it possible for the judges to hold other judges accountable for their actions? And if so, what does that look like?
Is that for anybody in particular, or?
I can try.
I want Judge Best to get in there. I was like, that's a Judge Best question. Come on, Sarah. I know you got an answer.
I mean, I think it's already been alluded to, and you alluded to that, is that basically you call them in / call them out, of course. But holding them accountable, I think that's something really that's up to the voters. During this last election cycle that we had, there were people in the race who actively failed to acknowledge that there was systemic racism. And I always say systemic and systematic, but they failed to recognize that. They made statements that, they took an oath. Their belief is that they took an oath to be unbiased. And so the bias stops at their courtroom doors. I don't know how it looks. If the voters aren't holding these people accountable, we can say any and everything up under the sun. And it has been said in nicer terms and more professional ways. But if the public doesn't hold these judges accountable and they continue to vote for these individuals, then essentially they are endorsing their ideology that justice truly is blind, when we know that there's a little peak up under there. As many of you may very well know, myself and Judge Curitan, your frat brother, we're involved in a lawsuit, and we're still involved in that lawsuit, where essentially I was written out of my seat, and Judge Curitan and Judge Brooks at the time had to run elections, and then 82%, Donald? I think 82% Caucasian, something like 79% Republican district, because they took the county and divided it into 8 different sections. Because of our lawsuit, of course, I was able to run and didn't have to move. Judge Curitan didn't have to move. Judge Brooks didn't have to move last year, but of course, she had already lost her seat. And so that's what race and racism looks like, and that's how you hold judges accountable. Now, quite frankly, the speeches stopped after it didn't affect certain folks. When they were talking about redistricting, then everybody, it was a we're in this together moment. Yeah. And then once it simply affected myself, Judge Curitan, and Judge Brooks, then there were some people who actively stopped participating in lobbying efforts to get the legislature not to do exactly what they did. And so fortunately, we were able to locate an attorney to represent us. But it's in your hands. It's the people's court. It's voters. You know, I can say, I can jump, scream, holler, call in, and Lord knows I know how to call out. But it's not going to do any good if it falls on deaf ears. And if people keep voting for these same individuals every time an election comes up, then they're essentially being endorsed. And the community is telling them, we actually appreciate what you do and we like what you do. They're not being held accountable.
So to that, I would also like to mention about in Mecklenburg County, all of our district court judges, and I believe Superior Court judges as well, have gone through a program through Race Matters for Juvenile Justice. And what we're doing to kind of like call out our colleagues is we have advocates within our judiciary who have taken that program to a higher level. I believe Judge Hands also, correct me if I'm wrong, Judge Hands, but I believe she also administers a similar type program to new judges coming in or to judges, period, throughout the state. And so we are aware of the history of inequities, and we're trying to make efforts to call each other out by educating each other on this process. Judge Hands may want to talk more about that.
I think you handled it beautifully. I just want to add, though, that to Brother Scott's question, which was, can we hold one another accountable? And I know you both touched on it. I want to echo Judge Best's sentiments that really we kind of can't. I mean, we can only do so much. So can we call it out? Sure. Can we call it in? Sure. But accountability, we literally, a lot of people don't understand, we as judges, we really operate in fairly much silos. I don't know what's going on in Judge Curitan's courtroom unless I actually decide to stop. I know good things are happening there, just so it's clear. But I don't know specifically what's going on unless I take the time to stop in, sit down, and spend some time. We're literally all in our courtrooms on a daily basis. We only know what happens that we hear through the grapevine, and we might hear some things about some of what our colleagues are doing. We might hear about colleagues that people say they don't feel like they can get a fair shake in front of, and we might have a conversation with them about something specific, but specifically holding them accountable for some things that might, for example, lend itself to structural racism in the system. We don't really have that much of an opportunity. We certainly are not supervised by one another. There's no one who can tell us how to run our courtroom, what to do, what not to say. So I do think it's important that the public understand that, really to the extent of what Judge Best said, that it's the public, it's the over 1 million voters of Mecklenburg County that should be holding us accountable. Because one of the things I just want to add, as we have been working on, the School of Government now has a racial equity education project that will be responsible for educating all of the judges statewide to continue the project that we were so blessed to work on this past summer. And as we do that, one of the things I just started thinking of recently is it's not just about whether or not you believe in bias. It's not just about whether or not you believe these things that people are trying to woo the voodoo of implicit bias. To me, it's an ethical obligation. We take an oath about supporting the United States Constitution and the North Carolina Constitution, which includes liberty and justice for all. And if you look at the data, there is no way that you could say you are doing your job as a judge with this data unless you address the systemic and, like Judge Best said, systematic racism that impacts the average person of color that comes into our courtroom.
Thank you. The next question, and this has been touched on a little bit, but is there, and this is to Judge, we'll go to Judge Henderson. What is something that you think the community should know about the justice system in Charlotte and may not know, or a misconception about the justice system in Charlotte?
So this kind of goes with that first question, and the responses that my colleagues had is about education. And so one very important aspect of our court system here in Mecklenburg County that we certainly want to educate people on or increase awareness of is that we have an office in the courthouse called the Self-Serve Center. And this office is for people who are representing themselves. And there are we have many cases that are filed at the courthouse where people are representing themselves because they simply can't afford to use an attorney. And it should not be a barrier, or the access to the court system should not be a barrier simply because people don't understand or know about the processes. And so the Self-Serve Center was created for that purpose, to get that information to the people so that they can still proceed with a legal matter even without an attorney. That Self-Serve Center, it has form documents that's provided to people in certain areas. They have an opportunity for people to sit down with an attorney briefly to discuss their case. And then there are also videos and other things available for people to watch to prepare them for how cases go in court. And then also, I mean, the courthouse is except for juvenile court, you can always go down and go into any courtroom and sit down and watch and learn. So that's also available for people. So that's the Self-Serve Center, and I believe Mecklenburg County, if it's not the only, is one of a few counties in this state that has that available to the people.
Judge Henderson, may I add to that? I am super proud of Mecklenburg County's recovery courts. And I know a number of our judges have worked and served in that capacity, Judge Puritan, Judge Best. I mean, we recovery courts to really touch upon mental health needs and substance abuse needs, and really being mindful that we deal with human beings. And people may make mistakes and there'll be consequence for them, but we want to make sure, especially where young people may be involved, and let's be very mindful. People that come in front of us, they have families. They have families, right? So we deal with cases, but we really deal with faces and people, as Judge McCoy Mitchell likes to say, faces, not cases. And so I am proud that we have our courts that are tailored to address the root, right? And not just the manifestation of what you see, because the manifestation might have been the larceny or the theft. Let me translate the theft. But what if the root is a substance abuse or mental health issue? And so that's not something that all judicial districts have, but it's something I'm proud that Mecklenburg County has, that we have recovery courts, so that once we, appropriately consequenced you for the infraction or the crime, we can still make sure this someone who will not recidivate, who will not come back before the courts, they're in the best position to work, to support their families, and to be awesome members of our beloved community.
Yeah, in joining those sentiments, I think there's always going to be somebody that's going to have some criticism of a system, including ours, and especially one as large as ours, because we deal with thousands of cases on an annual basis. But the reality is, our court in Charlotte-Mecklenburg has been extremely intentional in addressing the inequities that we see, that we know exist, and have been intentional in improving the processes that we know impact the lives of every single citizen that come through those doors. And all of us express frustrations that we're not seeing the improvements that maybe we want to see. But when we start to look back at the things that have been done here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg 10, 20 years in the making, we realize we are far more advanced, far ahead of the game than other court systems, not only in North Carolina, but some across the country. You know, we've been asked to go speak at places across the country when it comes to inequity and race matters for juvenile justice. Our bail policy is something that is utilized in terms of a national model, in terms of research and implementation of how we use bail and cash bonds here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. Recovery courts, when the state defunded recovery courts in North Carolina, Charlotte-Mecklenburg was one of the few that still kept it going because they knew the benefits that existed to the people and the citizens of this area. So, you know, while we know that there are some criticisms, we are really trying our very best to do right by everyone that comes into the courthouse.
I'll add something, can I, real quick, that I'm really proud of. We talk to judges statewide who talk about issues, how issues of race are still kind of the hush hush topic and things of that nature. So one thing I'm incredibly proud of is that I serve with a number of colleagues, not all who look like me, that I can talk about race. I can talk about issues related to race or issues that I see in the courtroom. Now, I didn't say I could talk to every single one of my colleagues that way, but I certainly have a good, solid group. I mean, 10 of our 21 district court judges are African-American, and a lot of people don't realize the amazing diversity we have on our bench. But I certainly feel blessed to be able to discuss real issues on not just a surface level, but in an in-depth way. One of our colleagues who's now in the Superior Court, who's heavy in the race matters for juvenile justice fight, once talked about, he brought up in the courtroom, like, why did that Black man just get a very different sentence than the white guy? Similar situation. And I remember telling him, or some of us said, well, you can say that, right? You're a tall white man, nobody gonna mess with you, Judge Trosh. He said, well, you can too. And I did not think that it was as easy for us to address those issues, but I definitely do. And I had to realize that, of course, if we can't say anything, who can? So I'm proud to be in a county where we can address those issues when they need to be addressed.
Well, one, I love to hear that that you guys have the open platform to address that when need be. So I greatly appreciate that. At this time, we want to open it up. We have our own questions that we want to ask, but we want to open it up to the floor to see if anyone has any particular questions for the judges.
I had a question, if I may. Greetings, everyone. I'm Robert Mahoney. Several years ago, I served as a juvenile court counselor, 97 to 2000. And when Judge Henderson first ran for office, just a little bit after that, he assigned me, as I was working on his campaign, to the Thomasboro Elementary School district, and I was passing out information. And I kind of got the bug because I didn't necessarily think that we were as educated as we need to be. And when I say we, I'm talking about our communities. Because this panel is esteemed people who have degrees, and some of us have more degrees than most, I guess it's an assumption that people understand the ballot and understand when they go to the precinct what they're voting for. but I currently serve as a chief judge. And I have to give a civics class periodically when people come in to vote because they saw a commercial on TV to vote for Dan, the congressman, but Dan wasn't on the ballot in our particular precinct. So how do I educate people about who you guys are, what you all are doing, if they don't understand anything except the president of the United States and the governor of North Carolina?
That is a question we've been trying to answer. I know since I ran for office, it has always been a struggle to get people to go down ballot. Civics education is very important. Yes, it is extremely important. And I know that my colleagues and I, between all of us, we have covered this community in one way, shape, at all points. As stated, there's 10 of us, and we all live in different sections of town. That continues to be an issue. And what we deal with on the bench is we deal with the ills of all of society's failures, essentially. That's who we get, right? I don't know how to answer that question, except we can only do what we can do. You all, everyone who's watching today, you are mouthpieces. Even as judges, we are limited in what we can say. We can't advocate for certain things. We can't take a position on certain things. I would get people at the poll who asked me, well, how did I feel about abortion or gun rights or this or that? And I would tell them, that's not my job. I can't take a position on that issue. I can't advocate for things that will improve the court system. And we've been, we've been gotten a lot more outspoken. I would dare say we're actually more outspoken than many of our predecessors, 10, 15 years, prior to all of us joining the bench. So there's been tremendous changes and growth. The only thing I can suggest is that's where you come in. And I used to be a chief judge of a precinct. And so I know there's only so much you can do. But that's where the community meetings come in. I was talking with a friend of mine. We're talking about recovery court. And since COVID's been in place, I've had a couple, I won't say but we've had a couple of our recovery court individuals pass who died. And one of my former recovery court individuals was recently murdered not too long ago. And so I'm saying all that to say that we can only do so much. And I think that's the important thing to tell the community. Your judges can only do so much. They are limited in what they can do. But we as a community, we as a society, we can offer more. We can try and get in front of this issue and be, preventative rather than be reactive. Because that's one thing that we're missing in our criminal justice system, in our civil court system, in our family court system, in all of these systems. I'll also tell you last thing that I had a discussion with someone, and all of us have been members of various organizations. And, of course, we're all active in our sororities. And I don't think I mentioned that I was initiated at University of Michigan, which is your Epsilon chapter, the best website I've ever seen in my life. Okay. Sorry, that's my son. It's his birthday. Sorry. He's acting out. He got a new toolkit from one of my my line sisters. I'm sorry, we say a different word in the Midwest. But what we figured out, and I've said this in sorority meetings for years on out, that we oftentimes will have programs and expect people to come to us. Hey, can you go hammer over there? I'll let somebody. Okay, he stopped. But we expect people to come to us wherever we are, but we don't go to them. So we've even gone to the community center. I remember John S. Leary Bar Association, Judge Hands and I have served as chair, and all of us have been members of. We actually had an event at Martin Luther King over in Hidden Valley. And the turnout was not what I expected, because it's like, wow, you're right there in the community. Where are the people? Where are the people? Advertisement was done. It was a great program, free wills, free legal advice. Now I sign expungements too. Now my expungement clinics, people will come out for those, for the driver's license clinics that I think they're having. But when you're just simply trying to educate people on civics law, on the difference between the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch, or the executive branch, it's a hard sell, but that's where your school system comes in. I think what we have to do, and to be honest, we have to start going door to door and talking to folks. And I think that's what it's going to take in order to educate our community about who to vote for down ballot. And don't just look at a commercial, and be educated on the issues that benefit you, or if they don't benefit you individually, benefit the community as a whole. Because I'll be honest, I'm not really an individual thinker, because I learned in 1988, 89, I, me, my mind, these are words that never shine. Us, we are together, these are words that last forever. So I don't think in individual terms. And that's something that stayed with me. And I don't know how many of you had to say that at some point in time, but if not, that's for even for your kids and for our community. Put that in your repertoire. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
I do have a follow-up question to that, if I could. And it's probably a bit of a mediocre question, but I've always been curious to this. I feel like the judges outside of your governor's office is probably the most important races that are on the ballot. Why is it that they have the judges at the end of the ballot when people by that time have already tuned out, and not in the middle or perhaps at the top? Because you guys are making a lot of decisions that are changing everyone who's voting lives. Anyone can answer that? Any other judges can answer that? Why is it that you guys are at the bottom of the ballot and not at the top or in the middle?
So I'll jump in. I have no idea. Of course, we have had some questions. People have been asking this question for a long time, but what are we talking about tonight, right? Systems. There's a system in place. And the assumption might be that you want people to know things, but then you have to think about your system. And I don't know who did it and started it, but the question is, do they really want you to know, the average voter to know who we are? Do people want educated voters, or do they just kind of hope that people won't know what's going on? The reality, one of the things that we tell folks, and it's really important that people who are watching this know, that a district court judge, you're probably more likely to see us somewhere, unfortunately, than anyone else, right? I make the joke when I'm on the campaign trail that you won't know me if I haven't been in trouble, because that's the only way you probably read about me in the paper, chances are. And I won't know you if you haven't been in trouble. So at the ballot, on the campaign trail, folks, I have no idea. I have no idea who you are. On the other hand, if you do your research, hopefully you might be able to try to figure out who we are. But that's the way I would like to propose that. That's the way they actually want it, right? Is you have no idea. So it is incredibly difficult to get better information about, who the judges are. And it kind of really becomes a popularity contest. The lawyers say who their favorites are. People send out a list, send out emails of who is whom. But we're hoping that we can do better by getting the word out about what's going on. To that end, I started, some of us have been talking about what we can do. Looks like we're going to have our former Chief Justice at the top of the ballot coming up in 2022. And so I started reading Stacey Abrams' book, because as many of us know, she didn't just start doing this work last year or the year before last. She's been working for an incredibly long time. And one of the things that she talks about in her book is how we mobilize and how we get the word out. And we're entirely capable. The bottom line is, when you talk about the system, if the folks who were really at the bottom of this system, if they all came together, bottom and middle, they wouldn't be able to handle us. And I'm hoping that in North Carolina, we will get the message that they receive from a number of other folks. So I am hopeful, and hope that we can do it.
So Judge Haynes,
I had a youth perspective, if I could, because these are men of Alpha Phi Alpha and the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha, and I'm sure our brothers, and I'm for certain our brothers in the Divine Nine, we have all these amazing youth opportunities. And yet we often want to just rely on the school system or parents to really educate young people about this. That is really the power and the influence of the D9. I was so happy that Stacey Abrams did what she did, but I thought about, what if we collectively have been doing that? And I know we're nonpartisan, so we're not connected, or we don't endorse a particular political party. But once again, education is something judges can be about, and certainly D9. And I'm always wondering why we aren't taking more efforts when it comes to civic engagement to really take what I call that sweet spot, those 16 to 18-year-olds, those 15 to 18-year-olds who are gearing up to vote, and why we aren't helping them as they take it to the streets, right? To talk about those very same things. When George Floyd was killed, anytime you see something, it's these young folk with energy. When you think about Fred Hampton, we know how old that brother was when he died. and didn't make it to 25. Young people have tremendous energy, tremendous insight. And I think we could do a lot to help organize and prioritize civic engagement around judicial work, around why judges matter, what the Constitution is about, what the Constitution has meant to Black folk, to really imagine a world where our young people are just as engaged. Now, I want to give credit and props to the courts again for having programs where we are at least introducing young people, although not intentionally for them. We have something called truancy court, where it's really about these little kids that don't go to school and really holding their parents accountable. But the judges who do it, we are engaging with these families. We are loving on these children. We're trying to get to the root of it. The fact that we are in the community in that way, that's an introduction. Judge Trotman, Yolanda Trotman, who is no longer on the bench, but who was on the bench from 2014 to 2016, started a program called I Speak Now and brought kids to the court system to learn not just about the judges, but about lawyers and bailiffs and probation officers and those who work as Brother Mahoney did. You don't think some of these young people, they're gonna be looking for judges on the ballot when they turn 18? So it's got to be and both thinking. It's got to be, as Sister Beth said, going knocking on doors, not being afraid for precinct leaders to have a walk it out and not just wait until someone's, well, someone's always campaigning, but sometimes to campaign about education without people being on the ballot. Like, now is the time. There's a tremendous opportunity in this community, especially if elections, and I believe they are 2022. This is the year where we can do exactly what Judge Best is saying. Let's then focus. Maybe this month is about the judges and you knock on the doors. Maybe next month it's about your city council person or the school board. When there's not, just knock on the doors. And then also pair that with being intentional with what's our youth component when it comes to civic engagement around the law, because the law touches everything in our lives, everything. So I think it's something we can imagine where we do it and get on it. So holler at me. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen, brothers.
So Judge Little, that's an excellent point, but I do want to follow up that point with something that Judge Best brought up a little earlier. Her comment was that you guys can't take positions on controversial topics, and that's what matters to me. How the position that you take on controversial topics helps me to understand how you're going to implement your responsibilities as a judge. So if we're going to educate, yes, we can go with Brother Mahoney and help educate people in general, but that doesn't help me to educate some of my fellow citizens on who is going to be able to be judges that will act in their best interest. Help me understand what we can. If you can't take a position, what am I talking about? Yeah, she's a nice lady. She's, an AKA, and, she's probably pretty thorough, but I don't really know what she believes about anything that you care about.
Can I actually add something? I'm gonna answer your question, but I got on my soapbox about the structure and forgot to finish what I was saying about our court. The district court is really the people's court. So I want to start with answer your question that you can tell. You have a conversation with your judges who are serving you. We cannot tell you how we might feel about some of these controversial topics because we do have to be able to preside over certain issues, right? And we have to maintain a certain appearance of neutrality. However, I believe that if you have conversations, and I'm not saying you necessarily would be able to catch every single one, but if you're attending forums and candidates forums and listening to what these judges are saying and asking the questions, if you all have a forum, asking how they feel about implicit bias, asking how they feel about structural racism and systemic racism in the justice system, I think you will get an idea about the kind of person that you've got presiding over the people's court, which is everything that y'all have, half of what we deal with, more than half, traffic tickets. All your district court judges have divorces, all child support, all child custody, all juvenile. So if they're trying to remove a child, that's with us also. All of your misdemeanors are with us. All of the domestic violence in the court system starts with the district court. So that's why we call ourselves the people's court, is you're likely to be in front of a district court judge again, just because you were speeding, I think, than any other judge that you'll come across. So I'll let my colleagues add, but I believe if you listen to what we're saying when we are speaking, you'll get an idea about what we believe in and what we stand for.
Yeah, and Brother Wages, I've always found that to be one of the biggest challenges when we're, trying to get elected or reelected. I do think when we're out campaigning, you can get a vibe from a person face to face about how they feel on certain things. But moreover, when we talk about our courts being open, you come to court, 9 times out of 10, I'm more than likely going, or Judge Best and Judge Hands and Judge Little, we're pretty frank about issues. And we may not be able to say, like I may not be able to say something exactly about a particular incident or case, but I can make a statement generally that can connect with the people in court and let them know that I hear you, I see you, and maybe I understand this particular issue better than you think I do. And how can we now frame something to help your situation improve from where it is right now? And it's hard for me to, sometimes I can show you better than I can explain it to you. And that's just a weird situation that we're in terms of being judges. But I think the more one-on-one conversations we have with folks, it tends to get a better understanding.
Let me just ask a follow-up question to that. So one of the things that made my wheels start to turn is when Judge Henderson was speaking on the fact that there were a lot of people that weren't able to or couldn't afford representation. So I'm curious about the number of times that, or the frequency of times that people have negative outcomes due to the fact that they have inadequate representation.
Well, unfortunately, that's such an anecdotal kind of analysis that we could provide. Like, so it could be very hard in the sense like somebody comes in without counsel and it's in a summary ejectment or eviction scenario and they want to be evicted. Well, the perception could be that it's a negative outcome because they were unrepresented, or it could also be that it is because the facts were what they were and the law was the way that it was. So that's why I say in terms of anecdotal analysis of it. But generally, I do think that when people come in with counsel, they're able to navigate the system a little bit better than they can when they don't have an attorney. And I think generally they find themselves struggling to have certain conversations with attorneys across the table because they're not an attorney. And so the other attorneys will take advantage of them. So we see that in eviction cases. We see that sometimes in, frankly, in child-related matters, whether it's support or custody. Criminal cases is the one area where generally everybody comes in with an attorney because that's a right afforded to them, and they can choose not to do it, but most of the time they won't do it. And I think most of us agree, we usually don't let anybody represent themselves unless the statute says that we have to allow them to do that at that particular moment. We'll usually say, look, take this attorney, have a conversation with them. If you still don't feel like you're better served with having this attorney, then you can represent yourself. You can bring that up to the judge at the next hearing. But I don't think you really know what you're doing right now. So we try to stand in a gap and help folks as best as we can when that comes up. But yeah, we do see it quite often.
Thank you, Judge Purton. And that's about bringing us to our close this evening. Wow, there was a lot of amazing information shared this evening. I, me, my, mine, these are words that never shine. Us, we, our, together, these are words that last forever. I'm gonna take that one into West Charlotte High School tomorrow. You can bet on that. Also, just in my own personal reflection, some invites may be coming to West Charlotte from what I work at West Charlotte High School, and the conversation around civic engagement and civic literacy and teaching our young people about the court system and interacting with the law. Can't think of many better examples than the 5 judges we have here to spread that knowledge. And so invites may be coming there. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm gonna turn it over to Brother Smith, the chair of our Political Action Committee, to close us out this evening. And thank you all.
Thank you, Brother Kevin. And just to echo that, I think every time I get up to speak moving forward, I'm going to say, I, me, my, these are words that never shine us. We are together. These are words that last forever. I think I'm still in that too. And every time I get up to speak, I'm opening up with that. But I do want to say thank you to our judges for allowing us to have this conversation this evening. This conversation is so crucial in our community. And I wish we could just take this and just spread it across our community. I am a big advocate for the judges. I don't think people understand the impact the judges have on our lives every day, on our kids' life, on our babies' lives every day. So I'm a big advocate, and I'm always pushing and educating people about the importance of the judges. So I want to say thank you all for your time this evening. Please be on the lookout. There will be more events like this that we will be trying to do as a political action committee. Our goal is to really educate the community on civic engagement, on things that are happening. And I would say very quickly before we get off, when we first got on the call, I shared with the group that Georgia, and about 5 minutes ago, their governor signed it. They just signed into law some very restrictive laws that will prevent Black and brown people from going to the polls and voting how they should vote or how they want to vote. And that's a problem. And we are a purple state, so we could change our governor and that could happen to us. So it's important that we continue to penetrate our Black and brown communities, continue to educate our Black and brown communities on the importance of civic engagement, getting out to vote. And that's what this political action committee is about. So again, thank you to everyone. Happy birthday, Judge Best. Happy birthday, Judge Best's son.
Yeah, he's fine.
Thank you. Thank you again to everybody, and thank you, brothers, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for having us.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you
good
very
one
much, Tim. I
Sunday.
appreciate y'all.
Save me some of that